Jesus is the Greek form of the Hebrew name Joshua, which means God saves. And Joshua in the Old Testament was the right-hand man of Moses, and Moses leads the people of Israel through the desert for 40 years, is not able to take them actually into the promised land. You have to read the Bible to find out why. But he commissions Joshua. God chooses Joshua, Moses chooses Joshua, and Joshua begins the conquest, we call it, of the Holy Land. And where he tells the people to go to the different tribes, go and take the land that's allotted to you. Here now we have the new Joshua, the risen Lord, going and telling his followers, the new tribe of Israel, the church, and telling them to go take the land. So it's not just a small parcel of land; it's the whole world. Starting Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth is how it's spoken about in Acts of the Apostles. Yeah,
and so it's interesting because we hear about Jesus being the new everything, new Adam, new David, new Moses, and here new Joshua, and it's quite the task here that Joshua in the Old Testament, he's going to take the promised land. He's going to tell them, you got to go in. We got to do all this. There's a lot of work to be done, so to speak. And it's interesting that Jesus, he brings about our salvation on the cross, but there's work to be done. And the way that work is going to be done is by sending his followers out, and then he's going to send the promised Holy Spirit. So it's this kind of co-working together. And then that's what evangelization is. That's what we're talking about in terms of the mission. It's this taking the land. It's this taking of the earth for Christ, and to bring more and more people under his kingship, marching under his banner.
It makes me think that we shouldn't be afraid. And that's one of the things themes I'm sure that'll come up in our future conversations is fear is often what prevents people from sharing the good news, that Jesus makes a difference in my life. He can make a difference in your life. We're afraid to share that good news, but Jesus is like, no, just go and it's all yours. I mean, be prudent about it and be charitable about it. You don't slam it down people's throats, but be witnesses to the ends of the earth.
Yeah, when you just think about how many times Jesus said that, but then you think about John Paul II so much. So many times, be not afraid, do not be afraid. And it's interesting because, especially with John Paul II, you wonder kind of why was that so central to his message? And you look at the way that the world is now versus how it was kind of before he came, and there's been a turning in culture a little bit, and there was for so long where Christianity was the prevailing kind of undercurrent of society and culture for most of the world, and so you, so to speak, didn't need to be as afraid to share the gospel because it was what most people, they agreed with you, and so you have some of the great reformers who are trying to correct whether it was heresy or misunderstandings, or they were really trying to get people to be like the head and the heart, or there was always times when the saints needed to correct course. But when Christianity was the prevailing, it undergirded society, so to speak, you didn't have to have as much courage. And that doesn't seem to be the case so much today. And I think John Paul II sensed that.
Yes, we're living in what we might call a post-Christian world. We're definitely in post-modernity. We're almost, I think we can argue that we're in a post-Christian world.
Oh, I agree. You don't have to look around too much. Oh my gosh, I need to look up this statistic maybe we'll put it in the description once I clarify it. But it was, I think 20 years ago, there was something between 10 and 15% of people didn't consider themselves affiliated with religion. And today it's up to 29%. And that is statistically speaking, that is just a massive cultural shift, like a large scale cultural shift where more and more people are saying no to religion. It's across all religions, but it's in Christianity for sure. And if you just look at that trend, I think that there's a twofold thing that should happen to us as Christians living in the world is, one, we should be like, this is an invitation to evangelization, for one. And for two, it comes as kind of this like, oh no moment of like, we're losing, go take the land. Well, we've kind of had the land for a while, you could make that argument, but we're losing it. And we're losing it, and we have to go out. Right.
We have to have courage. And the reason we can have courage is because of the authority of Christ. I mean, that's the very first words. If we're going to unpack the Great Commission, it's Jesus saying, go therefore. So he introduces this before he says, go therefore. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me.
Yeah.
So the Father in heaven gives all authority in heaven and on earth to the Son. Mm-hmm. This is we're at the end of Matthew's gospel here, but remember the beginning of Matthew's gospel, Satan tried to test Jesus and tempt Jesus by saying, hey, all the kingdoms of the earth, all authority, I'm going to give that to you if you bow down and worship me, if you avoid the cross. But Christ takes the cross, is victorious over death,
he won't
sin,
do it his
and the
way.
cross. And because of that, the Father gives him all authority in heaven and on earth. And then he says, all authority in heaven and earth, go therefore. So whenever you see a therefore, you have to figure out what it's there for.
Yeah.
And here, it's what Jesus is saying is, I have the authority, I'm giving you permission, and I'm actually giving you a command.
Yeah.
This is requirement for you to do. And authority can sometimes be a word that we shy away from.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because we think of authority equals power.
Yeah.
And
we
does,
abuse it all.
And we abuse it. And we think of power as being abused.
And we think of it then as bad entirely.
But the root of the word authority, it's the Latin is auctoritas. It's the same root of the word auctor for author. Mm-hmm. What does author do? They create a story.
Yeah.
They give meaning. They have a plot.
Yep.
They start to finish. They bring you through. And it's also the root word, another root word of the word augment, which means to grow. So you actually help something grow.
Yeah.
So the authority that Christ has and the authority that he gives to the apostles and to the church is not one to lord it over others, but it's for service to help people grow.
Yeah. And it actually makes me think of Pope Francis's encyclical on Joseph, Patris Corde, where he's talking about that the role of a father who has an authority over his children is to lead them into freedom. And it's like, well, where do we get that? We get that from God the Father, and that's what Jesus is saying. I have all authority. I am the author. I can help write the story, but it's not just for the sake of his will being done in like a vacuum or for his own interest, so to speak. It's that his will is what is actually our good too. And so he has written a story, salvation history. He is writing a story in each one of our lives, and that we, kind of the goal is to give over ourselves in trust that his will is good and that the story he's writing is good.
Yep.
I really do believe that it's through living that you to come to discover that truth, which really is I think part of when you're evangelizing people, that has to be communicated. Like, you got to just give them a shot.
Yeah.
Give God a chance. Like, let a little bit more of yourself go. Give a little bit more to him and kind of see what happens.
What are we afraid of, right? The Pope Benedict, John Paul II, Pope Francis, they'll say these things like, we're afraid to hand ourselves over to the Lord. Why?
It's a good
we
question.
think he's going to destroy us? He's going to annihilate us? No, not at all. He's actually going to let us grow into the image and likeness of God that we're actually called to be and recreated to be.
And you just think so much about the Garden of Eden that whatever was going on with Adam and Eve when they ate of the fruit, it's they didn't trust that what God was trying to do in their lives was good, and then they just decide to make it themselves. And they want, Satan says to them, "You'll be like gods." Well, the ironic thing was they were already made in the image and likeness of God, and it's very easy for us to get this twisted understanding of what it means to be human, and so we strive after these kind of counterfeit things that leave us empty, and God designs it that way so that we can go back to himself. But
that's what the word autonomy means, autonomos, like self-law, self-rule. I don't want to entrust myself to another. So that's one of the first things I think we could talk about in looking at this mission, is that it comes from the authority of Christ. So that should give us great
so important
confidence.